हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम
Thank you so much for waiting. Hare Krishna. Dandavad pranams. Is it audible?
Yes, yes, it's audible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Just back from the temple. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girimetrupata Mahamanta Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram Om Apavitra Pavitro Va Sarvamastam Gatopi Va Yasmaret Nari Paksham Sabhyabhyantaram Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu. Yeah, I'm just sharing. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Srila Gurudeva. We are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 1. We are at Chapter 5. So, Chapter 5 entitled as The War. Basically, the conflicts between devotees among in the Gaudiya mutts. There are various Gaudiya mutts, and these acharyas, they come up with their own setup, different opinions, conflicts among them. So this is what this chapter talks about. So let us continue from this paragraph. Samyukta Mataji, can you please start? Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Can you please start?
Abhay would often accompany Sridhara Maharaja and his assistants at preaching programs where he would play the mridanga. And when Sridhara Maharaja fell ill, Abhay led the other devotees on preaching engagements, performing kirtana, playing mridanga, and giving lectures on the Bhagavatam. Sridhara Maharaja. We did not see Abhay as working very hard for making money, nor did he seem very rich to have a lot of liquid funds. He was attracted more to the spiritual side of affairs than to his family affairs. He never discussed business prospects with me, whether the business was up or down, or whether he was planning to do this or that. Monetarily, he did not have sufficient funds for giving any to the mission.
Continue.
Yes, Prabhuji. Abhay began to think seriously about writing Vaishnava literature. His spiritual master had seemed very pleased and had told the editor of the Harmonist, whatever he writes, publish it. Business profits, if he could somehow expand them, could go for printing books in English. As his spiritual master had said, if you ever get money, print books. Certainly, the Gaudiya Mutt was not going to do it. Kunja Vihari had sold Bhakti Siddhanta's printing presses to offset his legal expenses. No, Abhay would have to continue on his own, maintaining his business and simultaneously trying to write and publish. And that was also the prescription of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. It is better that he is living outside your company. When the time comes, he will do everything himself. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Suddenly I close this. Sorry. Yeah, let us continue. Yeah, Shirisha Mataji, can you please read?
Prabhuji, I'll read after some time, Prabhuji.
Sure. Okay, and then Bhavani Mataji, are you able to read?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, please.
So, Prabhuji, the highlighted it was
Yes.
It was in 1939 that Abhay wrote Introduction to Gita Upanishad. It was a short piece, but it signaled his intention to take on the task of one day translating Bhagavad Gita into English with commentary. Of course, there were already many commentaries in English, but most of them had been written by impersonalists or others who had not delivered the original spirit of the Gita, the spirit of the Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, hearing Bhagavad Gita directly from Lord Krishna. Abhay knew, however, that he could present Bhagavad Gita in a proper spirit by writing an English commentary based on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the disciplinic succession. So he began, whenever he could make time, he would write. Although a strict grammarian could find fault in his English composition, his meaning was always clear. In the introduction, Abhay reflected on the time when, as a young schoolboy, he had attended a lecture, Vidyaratna, the jewel of education. The theme of the lecture had been that God does not exist and could not exist. If there were God, he would certainly have appeared on earth to put an end to all the religious rivalry. But since God had not obliged man in this way, we should banish all thought of his existence from our minds. The audience, Abhay explained, consisting only of so many young boys, did not delve deeply into the subject matter of the lecture. Yet the majority, impressed by the arguments, carried away lofty ideas of godlessness, and thus being agnostic at home. Abhay had not satisfied with the agnostic conclusion because I had been trained by my father to be engaged in the worship of Sri Sri Radha Govinda. But as a result of the Vidyaratna lecture, I was experiencing some mental conflict between agonism and existence of Godhead. Later, having heard from his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Abhay understood that the personality of Godhead exists in every sphere of activity, but we do not have eyes to see him. Abhay wrote, even if the Lord personally manifests himself on earth, the quarreling mundaners will not stop their fighting and look upon Godhead or his representative due to ignorance. This is the birthright of an individual soul by the grace of God. Should I continue, Prabhuji?
Yeah, let it give it to other dealers.
Okay,
Thank you so
okay.
much. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Master. Radhika Mataji, are you able to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanwad. Yes.
Yeah, Dhanwad.
Bhagavad Gita is the true jewel of education, and in the Gita, Lord Krishna declares to the fighting people on earth, here I am, do not quarrel. The agnostic who had spoken of the jewel of education had been blinded by the jewel and therefore could not see and appreciate the personality of Godhead. Thus, he had gone on to convince others to become so called jewels also. Following his spiritual master, Abhay displayed an aggressive spirit for confronting all opponents of pure theism. In responding to his spiritual master's order to develop into an English preacher, Abhay was not simply making neutral scholarly presentations, he was willing and ready to fight whether against modern agnostics or Vaishnavism's old traditional enemy, Mayavadi impersonalism. Although few scholars so, Although few scholars taught the way of surrender to Lord Krishna as espoused in Bhagavad Gita, almost all respected Bhagavad Gita as presenting the essence of all knowledge. The Gita, therefore, was the perfect vehicle for confronting those who misrepresented God and religion. The Gita was a challenge to the agnostics, apotheist, anthropomorphist, impersonalist, henotheist, pantheist, and absolute monist. Although there were already more than 600 commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, they had been written by persons with an inner hatred for the personality of Godhead, and therefore they were imperfect. Such envious persons, Abhay wrote, have no entrance into the real meaning of Bhagavad Gita, inasmuch as a fly cannot enter into the covered jar of honey. Should I continue, Prabhuji?
One more, yeah. You can read one more paragraph.
Correct. Yeah. Abhay described Indian culture as an almost impassable ocean. due to its depth of thought and apparent mixtures of conclusions. But in this book, Abhay declared, I will establish that Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead by referring to the available records of scriptures, which are the recorded history of Indian culture and thought. Haribol.
Thank you very much, Mataji. I see Radhika Mana. Sandhya Mataji. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining. Please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam.
No. Yes, go ahead.
The sannyasis at 7 Banerjee Lane were impressed by the scope of Abhay's thought and intentions, as it was customary to award a title to an especially worthy Vaishnava according to his qualities. Bhakti Sharanga Goswami wanted to confer upon Abhay the title Bhakti Siddhanta. Sridhara Maharaja, however, thought it inappropriate to give Abhay the same title as the spiritual master, and he asked that Abhay's title be changed to Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti meaning devotion and Vedanta meaning the end of knowledge. Abhay was grateful. The title combined the devotion of religion with the scholarship of the most rigorous philosophy as passed down by the scholarly followers of Lord Chaitanya. He appreciated the sincere gesture of his brothers and accepted the title as a further commitment to his spiritual path of preaching Krishna consciousness.
Continue, these two.
Okay, Prabhuji. Abhay continued regularly associating with Sridhara Maharaja and discussing with him Srimad Bhagavatam. Abhay encouraged him to preach widely, although Sridhara Maharaja was admittedly more the scholar and rather shy about going out and preaching. On several occasions, Abhay tried to convince Sridhara Maharaja to go with him and charge Gandhi and Nehru as to why they were not following the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Another fruit of spiritual association at 7 Banerjee Lane was a book called Prapanna Jivamrita, compiled by Sridhara Maharaja, a collection of verses from various Vaishnava scriptures, including excerpts from the works of Rupa Goswami. It was divided into 6 chapters. According to the 6 divisions of surrender, Abhay, along with the sannyasis of the Devanada Saraswati Math, financed the publication. Thus, it was published as a joint effort by friends.
Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Sirisha Mataji, are you able to do now? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Prabhuji?
Is Sirisha Mataji able to read?
Yeah, she will read at end.
Okay. Lavanya, continue.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. September 3rd, 1939, Lord Linlithgow, Viceroy of India, announced that India was at war with Germany. Thus, England swept India into the war without consulting any Indians. Although independence-minded India certainly resented such a show of foreign control, there were mixed feelings about the war. India wanted independence, yet she sympathized with the Allied cause against fascism in the West and feared an invasion by Imperial Japan in the East. Since you dislike the British so violently, one author asked a typical New Delhi student of the day, would you want Japan to invade and conquer India? Student: no, but we Indians pray the Lord may give the British enough strength to stand up under the blows they deserve. Although at the outbreak of the war, India had only 175,000 men in her armed forces, the British managed to increase the number of Indian soldiers to 2 million. There was no draft, but the British sent recruiting agents all over India, especially in the Punjab, where military service seemed an attractive offer to the local poor. The Punjabis proved good fighters, whereas Bengalis enlisted as officers, doctors, contractors, and clerks. Indian soldiers were dispatched to battlefields in Egypt, Iraq, Syria, Persia, Malaya, Burma, and Assam.
Yeah, read this one.
While the British were attempting to mobilize Indians for the war, the Indian nationalist movement, which had continued off and on for more than 20 years, became very active. Members of the Congress party refused to cooperate with the war effort and demanded guaranteed independence for India. Some thought that since England had her hands full with Germany, the time was ripe to revolt and gain independence by force. Gandhi's position had been one of unconditional fascism, and he had opposed the idea of Indians taking up arms, even to defend India. But by 1942, he had become more inimical and had reduced his policy towards the British to a simple, unequivocal quit India. Thousands of Indians responded by chanting slogans in the street and even by tearing up railway lines. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Yeah. So let us go next. Gaurav Prabhu, can you please start?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The militant former schoolmate Subhash Chandra Bose fought against the British in his own way. He had approached Hitler in Germany and gotten him to agree that when the Germans captured Indian soldiers, Germany would return them to Bose, who would maintain them in his nationalist army. With this army, Bose planned to return to India and drive the British from Indian soil. But dissatisfied with his progress in Germany, Bose made similar agreement with Tojo in Japan, and soon thousands of Gurkhas and Sikhs, the best fighters in the Indian army, had defected from the British army to join Bose freedom fighter in Singapore. Bose began to prepare his army to invade India from the north. Then in 1943, the British found that Japanese who had already taken Burma were at the doors of India, approaching Bengal. By this tactic, known as a denial policy, the British sank many Indian boats carrying food and destroyed large rice crops, fearing that they would fall into the hands of the enemy. This left locals Indians starving and without the boats they needed for the trade. The famine that ensued was the worst that had hit in Bengal in 150 years. The government removed all control of food cost, and those who could not afford to buy the skyrocketing prices died in the street of Kolkata. Srila Prabhupada, I have got experience. The government created artificial famine. The war was going on. Mr. Shanshil policy was to keep the people in scarcity so they will volunteer to become soldiers. So this policy was executed. Big man, they collected the rice. Rice was selling at 6 rupees per mount. All of a sudden, it came to 50 rupees per mount. I was in the grocer shop purchasing, and all of a sudden, the grocer said, no, I'm not going to sell anymore. At that moment, the price was 6 rupees per mount. So suddenly, he was not going to sell. Few hours later, I went back to purchase. The rice had gone up to 50 rupees per mount.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Raju Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Prabhu.
Dandavat.
The government appointed agents began to purchase the rice and other commodities which are daily necessities. Then, sir, they can offer any price because the currency in their hands. They can print so-called papers, $100 and pay. A man becomes satisfied thinking, oh, I have $100, but it is a piece of paper. That was the policy. You have no money, no rights. So another avenue is open. Yes, you become a soldier, sir. Sorry. You get so much money, people out of poverty would go there. I have seen it. No rice was available in the market. And people were hungry. They were dying. Can I continue, Prabhuji? Abhay managed to purchase just enough for his own family to survive. But he saw the beggar population increase by the hundreds. Month after month, he saw the footpaths and open spaces congested with beggars, cooking their food on the improvised stoves and sleeping on the open beneath the trees. He saw starving children rummage- rummaging in the dustbins for the morsel of food. From there, it was the step to fighting with the dogs for a share of the garbage. And this is also become a familiar sight in the Calcutta street. The British had little time to spare from their war effort, and they worked only to save the lives essentially for the fight. For the common people, Empire's prescription was uniform and simple starvation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanutna.
Yes, Prabhu.
This one, Giraj Prabhu.
Yeah.
So you know what is being described now? The Bengal famine of 1930s, no, 30 to 39.
So either
1939, the Bengal famine happened, Prabhu.
yeah, 1939. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a description, pure description of how Prabhupada has seen all those things. Okay. You understand now what is going on now? What's happening? So this is artificially created famine, because of which millions of Bengalis died, and from this point of time, the richness of Bengal has completely been looted by British Prabhuji. Because Subhash Chandra Bose was against the British plans.
Yes.
So who suffered?
Bengalis.
Who suffered, Prabhuji? Yeah, common Bengalis. Okay. And now they speak about all this, what you say, human rights and human right abuses. With such a past behind them, they speak all about the human rights, values and culture right now, Prabhuji. So whenever someone says that human rights are abused, the genocides happened here because in their rule. Okay. So this is how the world runs, Prabhu. For one national interest, they will do anything. Okay, for the other people. That's how these societies and cultures prevailed for many years. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I've also heard that all these items, all those grocery and essential items had been given to all the soldiers who had been fighting World War II. So all those World War II, Germany and all those people, so entire grocery item had been exported there, and so many people suffered because of that.
No, many ships have already been capsized. No? That's what was being told here.
Yeah.
The ships which are about to come, they are capsized. And whatever local growth is there, that is being bought by government. So what would individuals do?
They'll suffer, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. We will continue.
Thank you for sharing. Hare Krishna. So now, who else there? Chandraval Prabhuji. Chandraval Prabhu, Akinchan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Please continue.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada. One American gentleman was present at the time. He remarked, "People are starving in this way. In our country, there would have been revolution, yes, but the people of India are so trained that in spite of artificial famine, they did not commit theft, stealing others' property. People were dying. Still they thought, all right, God has given." That was the basic principles of Vedic civilization. Abhay knew that under the laws of nature, there was no scarcity. By God's arrangements, the earth could produce enough food. The trouble was man's greed. There is no scarcity in the world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had said, the only scarcity is of Krishna consciousness. And this way, how Abhay saw the 1943 famine. Now, more than ever, the spiritual vision was relevant. Krishna consciousness was the prime necessity. How else could man be checked from his evil propositions to become greedy, honored, and make war, and thus create misery for millions? He had seen heinous activities of the British in India, They're cutting off the thumbs of the weavers so that Indian made cotton goods could not compete with the foreign made cloth. They're shooting down of unarmed, innocent citizens. They're creating artificial famine. They're propagating the myth that Indian civilization was primitive. Still, he did not believe that an independent Indian government would necessarily be an improvement. Unless the leadership was Krishna consciousness, and neither Gandhi nor Subhash Chandra Bose was then the government would be able to provide no real solutions, only stopgap measures. Without obedience to the laws of God, as expressed by the scriptures and sages, governments would only increase human suffering. Shall I continue, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Then Calcutta was born bed, day after day. Day.
Yeah, the bombing.
Then Calcutta was bombed day after day. The bombing was concentrated in specific areas such as the Kittapur port facility and Shama Bazar in North Calcutta, very near Abhay's home at Setakanta Banerjee Lane. American planes had been leaving from airfields near Calcutta for targets in China and Japan. So the air raids on Calcutta seemed an inevitable retaliation. It was the Japanese striking back, or was it? Some said it was the forces of Subhash Chandra Bose. Since the bombs fell mostly in the European quarter, but for the people of Calcutta, it made a little difference who was attacking. After the first bombing, people evacuated the city. Blackouts were imposed, and at night the entire city was dark. Srila Prabhupada, the whole Calcutta.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. Akincham Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada, the whole Calcutta became vacant. Perhaps only myself and few others remained. I sent my sons to Navadvipa. Of course, my daughter was married. My wife refused to go out of Calcutta. She said, I will be bombed, but I will not go. So I had to remain in Calcutta. I have seen bombing in Calcutta all night. I was just eating when there was the siren. So the arrangement was that.
Sorry, bro. No, sir.
So the arrangement was that in your house would be the shelter room. I was hungry, so I first finished eating. Then I went to the room and the bombing began. Chikyam. I was thinking that this was also Krishna. There is another form, but that form was not very lovable. In the midst of these calamities, Abhay felt more than even the need to propagate Krishna consciousness. He had something to say to the war-weary citizens of the world, and he longed for a more effective forum, a publication of some kind, a way to present the world crisis through the eyes of scriptures in the same bold style as had his spiritual master. There is no shortage of ideas, and had been saving money from his business for this very purpose. Yet how could he dare produce such a journal when even learned sannyasis, senior disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, were not? He never considered himself a great scholar among his god brothers. Although they called him Kavi and not now Bhakti Vedanta, as the Grihastha, he wasn't expected to take the lead or publish his own journal. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. But times had changed. The English journal, The Harmonist, had not been published since before Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's passing away. Now, almost a decade has passed. and the Gaudiya Mutt had been too busy fighting in court to consider preaching. Long gone was the tireless spirit that for 10 consecutive years had produced a daily Nadia Prakasha. No longer were 4 separately located printing presses pumping out transcendental literature under the direction of Bhakti Vinod Thakur's empowered son. The presses had been sold by Kunja Vihari. Times had changed. The Gaudiya Mutt was only fighting, while the non-devotees were killing each other in the World War. Should I continue, Prabhu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. From his front room at 6, Sita Kant Banerjee, Abhay conceived, wrote, edited, and typed the manuscript for a magazine. He designed a logo, a long rectangle across the top of the page. In the upper left-hand corner was a figure of Lord Chaitanya, effulgent with the rays of light like rays from the sun. In the lower right were silhouettes of crowd of people in darkness but groping to receive light from Lord Chaitanya. And between Lord Chaitanya and the people, the title unfurled like a banner back to Godhead. In the lower right corner was a picture of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati seated at his writing, looking up thoughtfully as he composed. Above the logo ran the motto, Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. Where there is Godhead, there is no nescience. Below the logo were the following lines. Edited and founded under the direct order of His Divine Grace, Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada by Mr. Abhay Charande. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. BT, this is still the same logo. I think you can find out online. We'll say two devotees, Sirisha Mataji and Deepa Mataji.
Sapan Prabhu also joined, I guess.
Who, Prabhu?
Sapan Prabhu joined, I guess. No.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So 3 devotees are left.
Yeah, read it. Read it, Prabhu.
Abhay had already gained some printing experience in connection with his business, and after completing the manuscript, he brought it to Saraswati Press, the best printers in Bengal. He also hired an agent, Calcutta's prestigious booksellers, Thakur, Spink and Company, who would take responsibility for distributing the journal to bookstores and libraries, including outlets in several foreign countries. Hare Krishna.
Continue.
But when he went to buy paper, he met with government restrictions. Because of the war and subsequent paper shortage, they wanted to assay what he had written in terms of national needs. During this time of world crisis, an ordinary citizen's religious newspaper was hardly top priority. Abhay's request for paper was perfunctorily denied, but he persisted. He appealed that using paper to print the teachings of the personality of Godhead was not a waste and not untimely in the present troubled atmosphere. Finally, he obtained permission to print his first edition of Back to Godhead, a 44-page publication.
Haribol, thank you so much. Deepa Mataji?
2 minutes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Sirisha Mataji?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Abhay Charan greeted his readers by defining his motto, Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. When man forgets that he is the son of Godhead and identifies himself with the body, then he is in ignorance. He is like a man who's very concerned with the automobile mechanism, yet with no knowledge of the driver. The defect of the present day civilization is just like that. That is actually the civilization of nations are illusion, and therefore civilization has been turned into militarization. Everyone is fully concerned with the comforts of the body and everything related with the body, and no one is concerned with the spirit that moves the body, although even a body can. Realize that the motor car mechanism
has little value if there is no driver of the car. This dangerous ignorance of humanity is a gross nuisance and has created a dangerous civilization in the form of militarization. This militarization, which in softer language is nationalization, is an external barrier to understanding human relations. There is no meaning in a fight where the parties do fight only for the matter of different colored dresses. There must be therefore an understanding of human relation without any consideration of the bodily designation or colored dresses.
Read this one.
Yes, Professor. Back to Godhead is a feeble attempt by the undersigned under the direction of His Divine Grace Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, the celebrated founder and organizer of the Gaudiya Math activities, just to bring up in a real relation of humanity with central relation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you much. Thank you very much. Yeah, Deepa Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. That there is a great and urgent need of a literature like this is keenly felt by the leaders of all countries, and the following statements will help much in the procedure. It was 1944 and Abhay specifically addressed the crisis of World War. The world's political leaders were expressing their disgust at their people's suffering and scarcity. After 4 years of fighting, costing millions of human lives, the Second World War within 20 years was still scourging the earth. Although the end was in sight, leaders expressed not so much happiness and hope as weariness and uncertainty. Even if this war ended, would there be yet another war? Had man not yet grasped the vital lesson of how to live in peace? Abhay quoted the Archbishop of India. India, guided by God, can lead the world back to sanity. He quoted the President of the United States. A program, therefore, of moral rearmament for the world cannot fail to lessen the dangers of armed conflict. Such moral rearmament, to be most highly effective, must receive support on a worldwide basis. He mentioned former President Herbert Hoover, who had affirmed that the world needs to return to moral and spiritual ideals, and he quoted a resolution by the British House of Commons, affirming that spiritual principles are the common heritage of all people and that men and nations urgently need to acknowledge the sovereignty of God. He quoted Wendell Willkie, who after his return from Russia had reported millions of Russians killed, wounded, or missing in the war, and millions more suffering from a winter of terrible scarcity and subjugation. Hare Krishna. Should I continue, Prabhuji?
Just checking one thing. It's a big one. Okay. You can stop, Mother. Tomorrow we'll continue.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna for reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Before starting recitation, let us pray for Mataji. She has Mataji's birthday today, Sandhya Mataji. Still there? I think she dropped off. Huh? Hare Krishna. I think she has dropped off.
Not there.
Okay, so we'll continue. Maybe. Yeah.
Can I call her once? Or
Yeah, you can call her. I don't know. You can message her. But
I'll
it's a
message.
meanwhile we'll continue the prayer sloka recitation. Yeah, Prabhuji, welcome, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Friday also, Stavai Pumsam practice. So now, 1 to 11. Yes, Mata. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So some 3 devotees can go with the synonyms and 3 devotees with the translation. Okay.
Synonyms, Hare Krishna. Vadanti,
Yes,
they say that Tattvavida, the learned souls. Tattvam, the absolute truth. Yat, which. Jnanam, knowledge. Advayam, non-dual. Brahma, iti, known as Brahman. Paramatma iti, known as Paramatma. Bhagavan iti, known as Bhagavan. Sabdyate, it so sounded. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
1 second, Prabhuji. So actually, some of the devotees, they may have left. That's where, let me request all of you to pray for Sandhya Mata's spiritual well-being and continuous inspiration to join this cause association. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining since last 2 years. When I start this reading call, you are the regular reading. Can you come on video, Mataji? We will pray for you. It's up to you. If you are not comfortable, it's okay. Okay, so please let us chant for the Mataji for 3 times. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Okay, since we are joining. Mataji?
Mataji in Memlawada, Prabhuji. I think she is going for darshan, I think.
Vemulawada?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanyavad. Sorry, Prabhuji, actually we came to Vemulavada.
Vemulavada, Hari Bol.
Vemulavada, Prabhuji.
Lord Shivniki Jai. Very good. Very good. Nice, nice. Okay, we'll quickly pray for you. Prabhuji, yes, and Mataji, please lift
Thank you so much.
and
Welcome to blessings kosame Hari join and Prabhuji call.
yes.
I should not miss Vaishnav blessings.
You can drop out once we recite, okay? For your spiritual growth. Please all enthusiastically chant 3 times Hare Krishna Maha Mantra for Mataji's spiritual well-being. Okay? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Hare,
Hare
Krishna,
Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare Rama,
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
all of us from the group side, Mataji, wish you a very happy Krishna conscious birthday. Spend good time at Vemulavada. Vaishnavanam Yatham Chandu. Remember it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Conscious birthday, Mataji.
Krishna conscious birthday,
Happy
Mataji.
Krishna conscious birthday,
Happy
Mataji.
Krishna, Happy
Thank
Krishna
you.
consciousness.
All of us in Vemulavaada and Tirupati.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you so much. Please pray for my spiritual progress, Mataji, all of you.
You are sincere and serious devotee, Mataji. Krishna is always very nice. Thank you so much. You can continue.
You should pray for all, Mataji. You are in Memlavada.
Yes, you are at Vemulavada, pray for all. Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Where is Prabhu? Is he besides you?
Junior Prabhu.
Sari Nandan ki jai.
Kesari Nandan Haribol. Tilak పెట్టండి మాతాజీ.
Prabhuji ఉన్నారా?
Yeah, sure, Mataji. Ready అవ్వలేదు. We are getting ready.
చిన్న వామన దేవులా ఉంటాడు.
ఓకే. పవన్ ప్రభు లేరా మాతాజీ? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice.
Na Pavan Prabhu. Are uniform.
Very good. Vemulavada darshan ki jai. Andar kosam Lord Shivan ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Can continue your program. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Chandran Prabhu, you can read.
Hare Krishna. Vadanti, they say that Tattvavida, the learned souls, Tattvam, the absolute truth, yet which Jnanam, knowledge, Advayam, non-dual, Brahma iti, known as Brahman, Paramatma iti, known as Paramatma, Bhagavan iti, known as Bhagavan, Sabdyate, it is so sound. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Any Prabhu, any Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Synonym.
Yes.
Vadanti, they say, tat, that. Tattva vidaha, the learned souls. Tattvam, the absolute truth. Yat, which. Jnanam, knowledge. Advayam, non-dual. Brahma iti, known as Brahman. Paramatma iti, known as Paramatma. Bhagavan iti, known as Bhagavan. Shabdyate, Shabdyate, it so sounded. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, one more Mataji. Lavanya, you can do.
Yeah.
Or Vani Mataji.
Mataji, would you like to do?
Hare Krishna, Vani Mataji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Are you able to do?
Yes, Prabhuji. Ancient Prabhuji.
Word by word. Then.
Okay, okay. Vadati, Vadanti, they say, Tad, that, Tattva Vidaha, the learned souls, Tattvam, the absolute truth, Yat, which, Jnanam, knowledge, Avayam, Advayam, non-dual, Brahmeti, known as Brahman, Brahma, Paramatma iti, known as Paramatma, Bhagavan iti, known as Bhagavan, Sabhyate, it so sounded. Translation. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
One Prabhu. That's it.
Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatman, or Bhagavan.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So, shall we go to the recitation directly?
Yes.
So, this is a kind of a conciliatory kind of tone. Actually, this is how the Bhagavatam says. It starts with a conciliatory. Yes. Persons who know this say this as, some say as Bhagavan, some say as Brahman, and some say as Paramatma. Okay. And in later on, he will reveal the Paramatma is the highest. But he starts with a conciliatory tone.
Bhagwan is the highest.
Yeah. So, please repeat after me. Vadanti tat tattvavidas.
Vadanti
Vadanti tat tattvavidas. Vadanti tat tattvavidas. Tattvam yajnanamadvayam. Tattvam yajnanamadvayam. Tattvam yajnanamadvayam. Brahmeti paramatmeti.
Brahmeti paramatmeti.
Brahmeti paramatmeti. Brahmeti paramatmeti. Bhagavan iti shabdyate. Bhagavan iti shabdyate. Bhagavan iti shabdyate. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam.
Vadanti tattvavidas
Vadanti tattvavidas तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम्
वदन्ति तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम्
वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम्
वदन्ति तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम्
ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवान्
ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति
भगवानिति
ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति
इति
शब्दते
शब्दते
ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवान् इति शब्दते
ब्रह्मेति
ब्रह्मेति
परमात्मेति भगवानिति
परमात्मेति भगवानिति
शब्दते
शब्दते
ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवान् इति शब्दते
ब्रह्मेति
ब्रह्मेति
परमात्मेति
परमात्मेति
भगवानिति
भगवानिति शब्दते
Now the whole shloka 3 times, okay? Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan
वदन्ति
वदन्ति तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम्
ज्ञानमद्वयम्
ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति
ब्रह्मेति
भगवानिति
परमात्मेति
शब्दते
भगवानिति शब्दते
Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate
वदन्ति तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम् ब्रह्मेति
ज्ञानमद्वयम्
परमात्मेति
ब्रह्मेति
भगवानिति
परमात्मेति
शब्दते
भगवानिति शब्दते
वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम् ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवान् इति शब्दते
वदन्ति तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयम् ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्दते
भगवानिति शब्दते
Thank you so much. If we have time today, no, it's already 9:01. So Prabhuji, what would you say? Giraj Prabhu? Am I audible, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Yes. Yes. So what would you like?
Yeah.
Would you like to practice individually or would you like to switch off but end today?
చేయండి బ్రో, అంటే చిన్నదే కదా ఇది
Yeah,
చేసేస్తారు
yeah. So individually one by one, starting with Samyukta Mataji and Ramreddy Prabhu.
Ramreddy, yes, do it, Prabhu. Let us close tomorrow.
Starters.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Vadanti tattvavidas Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Sandhya Mataji is there? No. Okay. Deepa Mataji? Okay. Yeah. Sirisha Mataji, if you are there, you can go ahead.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate.
Thank you, Mataji. Lavanya Mataji, Radhika Mataji, you both can go ahead. Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदस् तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवान् इति शब्दते.
Thank you, Mataji. Lavanya Mataji.
वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदः तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवान् इति शब्दते.
Thank you, Mataji. Sanjay Mataji, are you in a position to read or recite? Okay, Vani Mataji.
Yeah, Vani Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, Mataji.
Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti
मैं खा के
shabdate.
आया हूँ
Thank you, Mataji. And
Prabhuji, I can
our
also do Prabhuji.
yes, Mataji, Deepa Mataji, please go ahead.
वदन्ति तत्तत्त्वविदस् तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शक्यते. हरे कृष्ण.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. And who else? Any Matajis left? Samyukta Mataji, Sirisha Mataji, Vani Mataji, Radhika Mataji, Lavanya Mataji, Deepa Mataji. Okay. Sandhya Mataji. Okay. Sandhya Mataji couldn't read. Akinjan Prabhu or Sapan Prabhu, any of you two.
या हरे कृष्ण
Yes,
वदन्ति
Prabhu.
तत्तत्त्वविदस् तत्त्वं यज्ञानम् अद्वयम् ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवानिति शब्द्यते. हरे कृष्ण.
Good night, Prabhu. Very good. Akinjan Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Yeah, just got a call. Okay. Prabhu. Yeah. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnana advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate.
Very good, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Chandramouli Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadhyayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdyate.
Kya baat hai, Prabhu? Today, no parallel, no equals, nothings. Today, the tune has come as it is, Prabhu. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
brother.
it. Yes, Prabhuji. Anyone else? Our main Giriraj Prabhu, Raj Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Raju Prabhu. Okay. Okay, Prabhuji. Giriraj Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. Learn translate this to know the absolute truth. Call is to know. Learns translates to know the absolute truth. Call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Yeah. Raju
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna Prabhuji.
actually,
Sorry, Prabhuji. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdaye. Translation.
Shabdyate Prabhu, last lo. Oh, very good. Yeah. Giriraj Prabhu.
who's phone, Prabhu?
I don't know, Prabhu. It's not
Anyway,
mine.
so Prabhu, this is what just want to share to everybody. This is the three kinds of realization. Bhagavan realization is the topmost, that is ultimate. Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, Bhagavan realization. This is one of the frequent verse Prabhupada quotes in his purports and in his teachings and lectures. Brahman realization compares to sunshine, Paramatma realization, all pervading nature, that is sun globe. Bhagavan realization is sun god itself, Surya Narayana, like that. So sunshine, sun globe, Paramatma feature pervading the entire sun globe. Not only sun globe, all the metal planets. And Bhagavan realization, Krishna himself, sun god, Prabhupada writes. Just to share this probably. Yeah. With this, we'll conclude now. Tomorrow we will see another verse. What is the Ata Pumbir
Hare
Vijas?
Krishna Lalpan.
Yes, Prabhu. Japan, Prabhu.
He's saying something, Prabhuji. Lalitman Prabhuji saying to me something wrong, I think.
Nothing. I think.
Nothing, Prabhu. Shabdyate. Last ఒక word. Shabdyate అని చెప్తున్నా అంతే.
Oh, sure, Prabhuji. Actually, I am not here, like looking at the screen, Prabhuji. I'm just hearing. That's
Yes,
it.
Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Acha. No problem. Thank you so much, devotees. Chadran Prabhu, Ladman Prabhu, Sandhya Mataji, Sri Mataji, Sapan Prabhu, Deepa Mataji, Akinjan Priya Prabhu, Ravanyam, Mataji, Samyukta Mataji, Mani Mataji. Also, thank you so much for your association. Let us connect tomorrow with new words and as well as the readings. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuveja patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada reading ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamritam ki jai. Bhagavatam prayers ki jai. Nitai Gaur Hari Premanande. Hari Hari. So see you all.
Thank you.
Happy Monday. Thank you. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.